Fallout 76 is turning out to be a very divisive game. There's a bunch of people that are still super excited for Bethesda's new online epic releasing next month, but there are a whole bunch of others who are gravely concerned. I put out a video a few days back discussing my problems with Fallout 76, the issues I can see the game might encounter as it moves through launch and beyond, but boy oh boy was I blown away by how many of you are way more worried. Now, I also put out videos discussing how much fun I had when I got to play Fallout 76, and frankly, I cannot wait for the beta to begin because I really did enjoy it. But there is a lot of negative energy in the community, and I went through the comments, picked out the common threads, the best ones, and I wanted to discuss them because while I only played 3 hours, and that's definitely not everything, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on a lot of the game elements, and it's just a really interesting conversation because things are pretty crazy right now. We're going to begin with Detroiter, who I got to give props to because not only did he or she have the top comment on the video, kudos to you, but also you incorporate my hometown, so I love you. Just give me a typical Fallout game. Now, that's probably the most common sentiment I've seen across the internet, that we just wanted Fallout 5, what the heck are you doing? And that's very valid. I think that if they would have just came out with Fallout 5, they would have seen a far greater response across the fan base. But there are some dangers with that approach, and we'll discuss those further on in the video. Detroiter also says, with the ability to play with another person in my game or theirs, and I saw a number of people discuss this idea of why didn't they just make the next Fallout a co-op Fallout and not go the whole big online server, do what everybody else is doing thing. That would be super cool. I think co-op Fallout would be fun, but it would run into a lot of the same issues. The dilution of story, reduction of the ability to follow along. How do you deal with multi-person dialogues or what's going on? It just feels much more like a mod than something that's truly achievable, at least in my eyes. And I think if Bethesda and Fallout were ever going to go multiplayer, it was going to be this bigger route, right? It was going to be this bigger online game that does what Fallout 76 does. So while co-op Fallout would be a cooler approach for a lot of people, I think it was inevitable that if they went multi, it was going to be in this more mainstream and mega way. Mr. Digitop says, Fallout without NPCs, this is a golden comment. Fallout without NPCs is like Halo without Cortana, fries without ketchup, or Trump without Twitter. Bravo. That is a beautiful thought. But I kind of have to disagree, because during my time with Fallout 76, I did not miss NPCs as much as I thought I would. Now, part of this is because there are still robots who provide some interaction. It's not a completely empty world. And then the holotapes aren't so bad. I guess I'm a fan of audio logs from games like BioShock, so maybe I'm partial, but it really wasn't as wrong as maybe you might expect it to feel and to be. Now, I know a lot of people get most of their immersion and enjoyment from the dialogue options and from just delving into the world of these other characters, and you still get smidges of that because you come across, unique scenes and sequences, and they're not alive, but you do get a very good sense of place. You can read a lot of notes. There are holotapes and audio logs that provide you with context and give you the interesting anecdotes and whatnot from this world. And then the robots give you some life. Maybe it's not actual life, but some semblance of life in the desolate wasteland. And obviously you'll have your friends to talk to, even though they're not written by Bethesda or anything of the sort. I get this, but it really didn't bother me as much as I expected. So if this is your main concern, I would recommend giving it a shot. I don't think you'll be as desperately upset as you might expect. Seidler Joe says, honestly, I've watched at least 10 hours worth of Fallout 76 gameplay footage, and it feels like I'm constantly just watching a dude fight ghouls. Does this game have any other enemy types besides the Scorch and the odd Projectitron? What a load of bull. I'll wait with this game. Definitely not a game one should pre-order. I did feel like the enemy variety was pretty bad, at least early on. Now, I don't know how their entire progression plans out through 60 levels or whatnot, but through the first 10, not a whole lot of enemy variety. A lot of Scorch, a few of the little Mark II bots, some Protectatrons, Mr. Farmhands, a ghoul or two, but I didn't run into a lot. And I think early on, especially in the localized central starting area, it doesn't feel that varied or exciting. It wasn't until I started wandering to deeper parts of the map that I came across things that were like, that's what's really fun about Fallout. And here are the sights, the sounds, and the creepy vibes that I want to experience. So I think that, yeah, you're seeing a lot of the early hours. Maybe they should have varied things up more often and put a little bit more pizzazz and spark in the early encounters. But let's wait and see the full game, the full map, and what we find as we explore an entire game's worth rather than just the same early hours over and over. Rock Hamler, very interesting name, says, from all I've seen, it doesn't come off as Fallout to me, more like a Fallout-themed mod of some other game. The Fallout world is centered around griefing with raiders and tyrannical factions everywhere. It is a destroyed dog-eat-dog world. To force multiplayer down our throats, they had to make so many compromises and sanitize the experience to fit the Twitch popular survival game checkbox. There are so many multiplayer survival games with crafting out there already, and their crazy popularity was a thing maybe 2 years ago. It has come and gone, dead, buried and forgotten, flash in the pan. Not only is 76 super late to the party, but it is a major put-off to everyone who likes Fallout for its unique single-player experience. They should have made the game separate from the Fallout world, different name, new branding, since the approach is different. I'm not getting this. Plus, what happens to the servers and therefore the game itself when after a few years of mediocrity, they start shutting the servers down? We have no idea what's going to happen with the success of this game. I still think it's going to sell super well. But there were parts where I was like, this is sort of weird and kind of feels a little bit antiquated. It definitely reminds you of Fallout 4. So if you're hoping for something that was like brand new in the Fallout gameplay mechanic, like just structure and framework of Fallout, it's not this. They are introducing multiplayer, and that brings about new encounters and scenarios and situations, but it definitely feels like a Fallout 4 in West Virginia with multiplayer. And I get what you're saying, Rock, about why did they do this and make all these compromises? It's super interesting. I discussed this on a different video, that you've got two games coming out that are doing very interesting, similar things with totally different approaches. So you have Red Dead that's trying to create this very dynamic world via super smart AI and reactive NPCs. And then you have Fallout 76 trying to create this super dynamic world by taking their single player franchise and merging it into the multiplayer space. Maybe that's a stupid idea. Maybe that's a smart idea. Will it end up being very successful and fun? TBD. Like I said, I still really enjoyed Fallout 76, but I get it. Like, why? And that was the focus of my problems video of like, are they towing this line between single player and multiplayer too narrowly, and they're going to end up getting not the great side of single player and not the great side of multiplayer? I think it's a very valid concern, and one that we just have to wait and see. I hope that, and I do trust that across the entire game, Todd Howard and co. can create something that will appeal, but it's going to have to kind of go one side or the other. Maybe it ends up being a much better single player experience. Maybe it ends up being a much better multiplayer experience. It's the part of like that symbiotic relationship between the two. Do they cannibalize each other? And so I feel you, Rock. We just need a bigger sample size. The Hintercast says, you see, the problem is Bethesda really thought that the everyday consumer would roleplay as a character. I would, but I also know that probably 80% of everyone else thinks it's stupid. This is a great point. This is a really great point, because the way that the multiplayer is structured in this world, especially with the removal of NPCs, is one that would be so benefited by role-playing as characters. Now, most people are going to just run around, run amok, cause chaos, barely talk, or just make jokes with their friends, or have insular conversations, and you're not going to get this world of like, oh, this guy is functioning as like this creepy old man that hides behind the power plant, and this dude is functioning as a trader, a wandering salesman that, got his head hit too hard when he came out the vault and is a little bit kooky. And this guy over here is, he's always at the water park and you'll find him there daily. And I get it, because that would be like NPCs. So I think where this idea comes from, not only is role-playing just like a really in-depth experience for people who like RPGs, but it would bring back the NPC feel. And again, we still have so many people that just don't understand how this can be Fallout when you remove all of that. And I get it, but again, I think give it a chance. The removal of NPCs isn't so bad. We're not going to see a lot of role-playing. We are going to probably see a lot of stupid, players doing a lot of annoying things, but they don't have to ruin your experience. I think it's possible to get in with a good group, to find a style of play that will work for you. Peter Buchanan comes in with a similar thought, stating, without NPCs, this game will have a playtime of a few hours. It will get boring fast. You'll build your settlement, and then what? The game will require playing with other people who truly roleplay, which you won't get. You'll have bunny-hopping 12-year-olds and griefers. Look at how joining any multiplayer server on survival crafting games like DayZ goes. Cancer. Yep, there's a potential that you will have a lot of people running around, hopping in your face, trying to shoot you, chip damaging you until they get bored. But the playtime of a few hours thing, I don't think that's accurate. This is a massive map. It's 4 times the size of Fallout 4, and whether or not there's NPCs, there still is a ton to do. You also have the daily and weekly challenges. You have the world events. So from a content standpoint, yeah, the NPCs do add hours via dialogue and, your own personal immersion, but I don't think this is a few-hour game. Even if you go completely solo, you're still looking at a very large map with a lot of cool things to explore. A roller coaster down south, a water park up north, whatever else the heck they have out east. Didn't even get anywhere near that. You got the Greenbrier in the center. There's still going to be a lot to do. And I think it's important to note that it's packed with content, even if it's not the styled content that you specifically love about Fallout. There's a lot here. And we do start to see some people jumping to conclusions and some misrepresentation of like, oh, this game is just like get in and mess around. There's not a lot there. There are quests. There are things to follow. There are a lot of side quests that pop up. If you watch my footage, you saw like I was constantly getting new things to go and do. So I don't think a few hours is accurate. I think this is going to be a big game. It's just how big and how much replayability, how much longevity really is there. Marco Zek says, you are getting too soft toward games in my opinion. If you're not playing this type of a game with a proper group of friends, not just some random people from the internet, there will be no RPG thing in it. Fallout multiplayer will never be a proper RPG experience. If you want to play proper Fallout games, this is definitely not it. There's no way to make an RPG with no NPC characters at all. Even some of the first MMORPGs had them. This game will have max lifetime of a month, maybe 2, and will die down if not even faster. And I'm so sad to say it, but it'll be the first game of Fallout I will not be buying. Okay, I think this is way too doom and gloom at this point. Look, it still has plenty of RPG elements. You are progressing and building a character. You're getting perk packs, you're putting points into special, you're grabbing gear and loot and upgrading as you go. Like, you're gaining recipes and XP, you're completing quests. There's a lot of RPG elements here. Maybe it's not exactly as how we've come to expect it, but I still think this thing sells super well because, guys, it's fun. Like, I can tell you whatever I want about the game, and I've shown you that there are problems and there are concerns, and there's also some really cool stuff, and I think it's fun. Like, I'm excited for it. So I think it's a little overboard to say, like, oh god, it's going to die in a month. That's pretty crazy to me. There's no way this game dies in a month. I mean, there's not no way. There's a small percentage chance, but I would be real shocked if it just was dead in the water. I don't think it's really that dark of a situation. I think it's scary when a franchise that is this beloved decides to completely take a big sharp turn, but it's still pretty Fallout-y, and it's still pretty fun. I don't feel ashamed to say, like, I really enjoyed it, and I'm very picky, and I can't wait for the beta. So, Marco, it's okay if you don't buy it, but maybe give it a second look. Maybe give it a chance. I think maybe some people are being just way too harsh. Zwenska says, it's sad how everyone here blames Fallout 76 for not being a real Fallout game. Remember, guys, Fallout 76 doesn't even try to be a traditional Fallout game. It's a step in a new direction for Bethesda, and it's definitely not a replacement for the next Fallout game for the main series. It's just a spin-off. Give it a chance if you like the Fallout series, but don't see it as a replacement for the Fallout game you wanted. This is what I was referencing early on in the video, that the approach of saying, well, dang it doesn't feel like Fallout 5, shoot, I don't want it. It's a bit of a dangerous and depressing approach, because while we would have loved Fallout 5, there's still a lot of good to be had here. It's a different kind of good, maybe, but this isn't a bad game. And you're not losing an eventual future Fallout by finding some fun here. Like, it's not an either or, I don't feel. There is the potential for spin-off, and in some ways it's super cool that they're doing this, because how many major franchises take a risk of this style? You don't really see it. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to get a Last of Us, I don't know, party game, and we're not going to all of a sudden out of nowhere get an Assassin's Creed that does something completely different, at least not that we're seeing. They're sticking with the formula that works with improvements and adjustments, but nothing on this scale. And I think about my love for Nintendo and how I always wish they'd take more risks. they finally did with some of their franchise and it really paid off. I'm not saying it's going to for Fallout specifically, but there is a part of me that really enjoys that it's taking a mega successful franchise and messing around with it. You just don't get that opportunity that often in this industry, and it's one that, yeah, it can upset you that it's not the main game, but I don't know. I still think it's kind of cool. No Artificial puts their thoughts in the comments with, I see the writing on the wall. Bethesda is trying to be like Rockstar in what they did to the Grand Theft Auto franchise online. I guarantee if it's not already done, they're going to come out with online in-game options you have to pay for. You want to fly a cool vertibird? No problem. Please just purchase this Fallout card for in-game credits, blah blah blah. I was right before pre-ordering the game when I started to watch a lot of gameplay footage like this and haven't been impressed yet. The biggest buzzkill is no NPCs. Seriously? That put the nail in the coffin for me. And to be honest, I prefer the graphics and realism of Fallout 4 over this look. It's just a no for me. I don't know that they're going to get super aggressive with the in-game purchases. Never say never. They might go crazy. But as of right now, it's not looking like that. They give you a whole lot of atoms which you can use for purchases. And Pete Hines was pretty clear on they're not looking to do anything of that sort. Now, you can say whatever you want. PR spin. Maybe they do in the future. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be a game plagued with those problems. I think you're going to get to experience the content and level up and progress and get your perk packs and grab your gear and find your cool loot and make your way through the world, taking down Scorched Beasts and Scorched, and see all the sights and not pay more than the initial price. So this one, it's not a worry that I would really hold on to. Talinar says, I don't understand questions like, what happens and what is the sense of enjoyment once it's all uncovered? After a couple weeks or months? Dude, you get another game. How much entertainment do you think they owe you for your money? Even if you just play this for 30 hours, you're paying $2 per hour for your entertainment. I don't understand some gamers out there. Once I finish a game or get sick of playing it, I just get another game. I don't expect to be playing one game for months, especially these days when awesome games are dropping every couple of weeks. Now, this is kind of how I feel. It's the kind of gamer I am. I dabble and I move on. I get really invested in something, but then I move on. I'm not the person that plays games for months and months or years and years. I know a lot of you out there do enjoy your games in that style, and some people just don't have the money to go grab a new one as soon as they get through what they're currently playing. So from a money standpoint, from a value standpoint, I get what a lot of people are going for. I do feel that a 30-hour game for $60 is still great value. And maybe that's what Fallout 76 is, maybe not. But it seems like there's enough content that you will get your money's worth, even if you don't over-enjoy the game, and even if you don't excessively play and spend, the next few months just diving so deep into the world with your friends. It feels like there will still be a lot and enough there. You get to decide the value of your entertainment. You get to decide the value of your hours. You get to decide how much you want for something. But at the end of the day, if it gives you 20, 30, 40 hours, pretty darn good for $60. Maybe not revolutionary, and maybe not the game that's going to suck your soul for the next 6, but I see where you're going, Talinar. I also see the other side of we can't just go and get another game that easily. But again, I think there's a lot of content there, and I think it's going to be worth the money, even if it isn't something that you spend eons playing. Some Schmuck on YouTube, which is just a very classy name, says, while it's too early to know for sure, and admittedly I'm going off anecdotal evidence, Bethesda should be worried about the low enthusiasm for a game in a series that's known for having some die-hard fans. He then goes on to describe one of his friends who has all the Fallout games and all the Collector's Edition and isn't really hyped. And yeah, that definitely is weird. It could be a case of a very vocal minority just covering the fans that are totally fine and just pre-ordered and ready for Fallout 76. I don't know if you added it all up, what percentage point of people are actually pretty ticked off and pretty concerned right now. But it does have a strange feel. We're approaching beta, we're approaching launch, and from my little sector of the internet, what I see is a lot of tepid reactions, a lot of uh-ohs, wait and see, concern, not touching it, frustration, and that feels odd for, as you mentioned, a franchise that is a favorite. Because everything else, people are so hyped for Red Dead, so hyped for Last of Us. That's, it's just even Assassin's Creed Odyssey has incredibly positive buzz right now. So it's weird, and I'm sure it's weird for Bethesda. And I wonder if the beta smooths all of that over and we start seeing more of the positive side of things, or if it just gets worse. I'm not sure. I feel like in general the coverage was pretty positive about the game. Yet the fan reaction, at least the vocal fan reaction, not so much. Vanny Grady is also experiencing the hype drain and says it feels so weird not getting excited for a Fallout game. I really want to give this a chance, but all that money just so I can hear a bunch of screaming tryhards or deal with hackers doesn't seem worth it. Honestly, I'd rather wait for a big sale so I don't blow all my money on garbage or wait till they come out with private servers. Garbage? This isn't garbage. Like, honestly, it's still a BGS game. It's still really good. There's a plethora of things to see and do. It just feels very... It's not garbage. I honestly think what happens is people try the beta and we start to turn a corner on this thing because it might not be the Fallout that everyone really wanted, but this is still a good game and it still is polished and it's still a lot of fun to play. Yeah, you might deal with some screaming, annoying groups, or you might come into some strange situation that is ruining the experience for a little while for you. And maybe a sale is right if this just isn't your style, but it's far from garbage. Like it really isn't anywhere near that. This is nowhere near as dire as I think some people fear, and I hope that more and more people getting their hands on the game begins to prove that. We close with UBW, who I think has a pretty level-headed view of this entire situation and gives a good closing thought. There's so much misinformation and hate in the comments towards a game that a lot of them seem almost blind to what game they're talking about. Some people are calling it an MMO. Some people are making complaints about it being not a Fallout game. Some people are calling it a $70 shoot and loot game with a Fallout skin. You can not like a game, but at least dislike for genuine reasons. The dude in the video didn't bring up any major concerns that a typical game would have when seen in pre-tests, and he saw a very small portion. Besides having concerns about there being no NPCs, which is a good concern, there aren't really any big concerns that people seem to be upset with. So what about the NPCs? Do the folks at Bethesda have the ability to make it work? Well, so far they've had a pretty good track record for games doing something new and something that makes sense. After all, the first people to visit the surface is who you are, so it makes sense story-wise why there are no NPCs. Okay, well, what about the gameplay aspect of it? We gotta wait and see. If you're really worried about it, don't buy it. Scope out some live streams, some reviews and playthroughs of the game before deciding after it's released, like you should with any game. I think that's pretty darn sensible. Yeah, there are concerns, but at its core, the game is real good. And that's what I hope comes through this video, and that's what I hope comes through my coverage, that I'm still waiting to make a final judgment on if this is a 9 out of 10 or a 7, but it's still fun, and it's still good, and I want to reiterate that multiple times so that these problems and these concerns don't balloon into something that makes this game seem like a complete disaster. There are elements that are worrisome, like what do you do once you've seen all the sites, and what will keep you coming back in months 2 and 3, and how does the endgame play, and is there more variety as you progress through the levels, and does the loot get better, and what happens if you go solo the whole way, or when will you need to have friends alongside you? But most of the gameplay mechanics are there. Most of them are, well, all of them that were there were very sound. V.A.T.S does feel a little weird, but outside of that, like, hey, it still feels like Fallout. And it may be diluted in some aspects, it may be enhanced in some others, but it still very much feels like Fallout. I don't know how else to convey that besides saying, hey, you got to give it a go for yourself or see more of the game. But I wouldn't be so worried. It may turn out to be a mess, and maybe we only play it for a few weeks and then we're out. But I really do, like UBW said, trust Bethesda Game Studios. They've always put out pretty cool products, and they've always packed them with content. I don't think they would take this creative risk unless they were confident. And while you could look at it as a money move, they also have quite the reputation to uphold. And I don't think Todd Howard or anyone else at that studio would be willing to risk it over some dumb cash grab that they didn't believe in. So look, maybe this isn't the Fallout game you wanted, but perhaps you can have a different kind of fun with 76. Not the exact same fun you had with 3 and New Vegas and 4, or even earlier entries if you go back that far, but maybe it can bring some new things to the table. It's still a really good game, it still has that BGS feel, there's still a bunch of juicy Fallout bits in there, and I encourage you to give it a chance when it hits beta, whether hands-on if you have the opportunity, or just some more streams and videos. I'm not anywhere near as worried as the comments, and I'm a pretty picky person, especially when it comes to Fallout. So fear not as much. I think that's the right approach. And honestly, our sample size probably just isn't large enough. Across an entire playthrough, we may not feel this way at all. And that's why in my problems video, I had said that a lot of these concerns can be remedied across the entire scope of the game, across the beta, across the final release. Maybe all of this is just overblown anticipation that unfortunately has turned to concern. But maybe we'll all be smiling like Vault Boy once this thing really rolls out and we get to see Fallout 76 in totality. Guys and girls, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you're thinking at this point in the comments down below. I am building up for beta. It's just a week away. We'll definitely learn a whole lot more there, and I hope to see you on those videos. Until that time, though, thanks so much again. Have a fantastic day. Try not to worry too much. I don't think you have to fear as much as you might be currently feeling. It's not so bad. The game's actually pretty good, and maybe we just got to give it a bigger shot. Until then, though, drink so much chocolate. Thanks again, and we will see you all later.